I'm John, and this is my beautiful wife, Sarah.
Our story starts when I was actually a kid. I always knew I wanted to have a family, get married, have my own kids, and the natural career path for me was being a stay-at-home mom and nurturing our kids. So when we got married in June of 2022, I was ready to start trying to have a family immediately, and it didn't really go as planned. We had tried for about 10 months, being unsuccessful. And before us even trying to get pregnant, I had prayed for God not to put us through infertility. I had known a lot of people going through infertility, and it was a fear of mine. I didn't want to do it. I just wanted it to happen naturally. So it was scary and definitely unexpected.
We found ourselves pursuing hopes from the world and not hopes from God, and it really led us down a dark path.
So after just under a year of trying, we went to an infertility specialist and started seeking infertility treatments. And every time I would sit in the waiting room, my spirit felt like it didn't belong there. I couldn't explain why, but I didn't belong there. But I felt like I didn't have a choice. And if I wanted to get pregnant, this is the way that we had to do it. And so I had put all of my hope into the doctors and these treatments. And unfortunately, these treatments weren't working. So as time went on, I became extremely depressed and anxious, and I was on the highest dose of anxiety medicine. I eventually became extremely resentful toward God, and I was blaming Him for putting me through this. I had prayed for Him not to put us through this, and here we were going through the exact thing I prayed not to go through. And at one point, I threw my Bible across the room, and I didn't believe in His word. I didn't believe that He was good if He was doing this to me.
I think it stressed us out in many ways. It put stress on our marriage, on our family. It put stress on each other. There was no peace.
I felt that our marriage was disintegrating over time, and John and I were constantly just in parallel play, not really interacting with each other. I made becoming a mom my idol instead of focusing on my marriage and making God my first priority. One of the most painful parts of this journey was month after month of unsuccessful treatments and negative pregnancy tests. I just became more depressed, and at one point I just fell to the floor sobbing and crying and just desperate for any kind of answers. And one night John just held me on the couch as I was uncontrollably sobbing and holding onto a bottle of pills because I had had enough. I didn't have a purpose anymore. I didn't feel like life was worth going on.
As a husband, it's hard to stand by and try to do the right thing, to intervene, to not to intervene when your wife is suffering. And it's hard to know the right thing to do. It's hard to know. It's hard to find God in those moments. One night we were sitting on the couch, and Sarah, for some reason I don't know, turned on the movie The Shack. And I felt the Spirit say to me, just sit by, just don't say anything, and just enjoy this time with her. And I felt that very strongly, and so we sat there watching that movie for 2 hours in complete silence. Mm-hmm. And that was a turning point.
Yeah. The Shack was a movie about a family who encountered a great tragedy, and through that tragedy they met God and found hope and purpose and forgiveness. And through that movie I came to the perspective that I actually felt convicted for blaming God for what we were going through. And I thought, maybe this isn't His fault, because there is free will. There is the enemy out there. But I did learn one thing from The Shack, and that was God can make such beauty out of ashes. And we were at the stage of just complete ashes. After watching The Shack, I really felt God starting to move in my life. I took a walk one day to a park that I had never been to before, that overlooked the river, and it was so beautiful. But I was in such great pain, and I just sat and stared up at the sky. And out of my last desperate plead, I just said, "Where are you?" And my eyes just drifted down, and they caught a fence post. And on the post, at the top of it, was were a couple nails tied together. They were rusty nails, and then a chain that was just spread out across the post. And immediately, what I saw was a crown of thorns and arms spread out on a cross. And I just paused, and I heard in my head just that small whisper, "I am right here."
So we had spottier attendance in church. Our worlds were much more earthly at that point. We were not pursuing the things we knew we should have. We were lost. And it was at this point that we started to make that bend, started to get more involved in our church, started to get more involved with Anderson Hills. And then shortly after getting back into church, we heard about Thursday night prayer night. And so we signed up and we started attending Thursday night prayer night. And it was there where we really got to know Suli and the prayer team. And we pursued a life pursuing God.
So after I saw that cross at the park, I started to feel a lot more encouraged, and I thought, maybe this is the Holy Spirit talking to me. And so I actually started exercising more because I wanted to keep encountering His voice and looking for it. So I would go on walks, and I was exercising, and eventually I was able to come off of my anxiety medicine, and I had so much more energy, and I just started to feel good. I started to feel good about myself and my body. And sometimes at night, when I would not be able to sleep, when I was filled with anxiety, I would turn on different sermons. And there was one night I fell asleep listening to a sermon, but I was awoken by the most beautiful song I'd ever heard. It was called "I Won't Move." And the main line is, "I won't move until you speak." And at this time, I was very confused about where to go with our fertility. I didn't know if we should be more aggressive with our fertility treatments, if we should give it up. And so one day at church, I just felt that nudge to go up to the altar and pray. And I was super nervous, but I did it anyways. And I just focused on praying. I said, "God, speak, for your servant is listening. And I won't move until you speak and tell me what to do. What are the next steps?" And it was so cool, because I think it was a week later where John and I watched the series The Chosen. And it was that episode where the paralyzed man went to the pool of Bethesda trying to get healed. And he could never make it to the water. But Jesus met him there and asked him if he wanted to be healed. And he said he had tried for a very long time to get to the water. But Jesus told him, "This pool has nothing for you. You don't need this pool. You only need me." And when I heard that, it was as if God was talking directly to me through that screen. And right after I heard that, I just jumped off of the couch, and it was like, message received. God had spoken to me. And I believe that was His promise to me, was we didn't need these earthly medicines. We didn't need these doctor's appointments. We did not need fertility treatments. Fertility treatments were the pool that we didn't need. We only needed Jesus. So for a couple months, we decided to listen to the promise that we received, and we stopped fertility treatments. But unfortunately, we still weren't getting pregnant. So we tried a fertility treatment right before going on vacation. And shortly after we got back from vacation, I immediately scheduled an appointment with a fertility clinic because my patience was just running out again. And it was at that appointment that we had decided we were going to start IVF. And that was the treatment that I just didn't want to do. I didn't feel like it was right. But again, it felt like I didn't have a choice. And then it was actually a couple days later, after scheduling all of our appointments gearing up for IVF, that I had gotten a positive pregnancy test. And unfortunately, this pregnancy did not last. Our pregnancy levels weren't rising appropriately, and so we immediately sought prayer from Pastor Mark Putman, and he prayed over us, just peace that surpasses all understanding. And at the time, it wasn't the prayer I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear, let's breathe life into this baby, and God just turned this around. But I officially got the phone call that this pregnancy was no longer viable. And after I had gotten that, John and I just sat on the couch all day, watching TV, mostly in silence. But it was this beautiful, undescribable peace that just surrounded us. We didn't have to worry if this pregnancy was going to last. And I believe it was God that just carried us through that time. After our miscarriage, I was left very confused, and I was scared that it would happen again. But I knew that fertility treatment had worked once, so I decided I needed to try it again to see if it worked. If it would work again. And so we had done that fertility treatment, and that month I really thought I was pregnant. I even told John, like, I really think I'm pregnant this month. And there was a day we went to church service, and the band played My Living Hope by Phil Wickham, which is our wedding song. And I stood there with tears in my eyes because it was this full circle moment of, I felt peace. I felt like I was pregnant. And I truly thought that was it. But that was a negative pregnancy test that month. So in the next month, I think this was November of 2024, John and I first started going to prayer nights with Sue Lee. And I think it was our very first night where we got to know everybody, and we were just surrounded by the community of people praying. And at the end of the night, Sue Lee had asked if there was anybody who wanted to receive prayer. And I boldly raised my hand and said, I would like to receive prayer. And so I shared a bit about my story, and we were in the worship center, and everybody just came around us, laid hands on us, and prayed and prayed. And there was something so powerful that night that I truly felt just transformed. And they were praying for healing and just for God to open my womb. So within that month, after receiving prayer from Sue Lee and the group at prayer night, I was feeling so encouraged, and I truly I surrendered everything I had to the Lord. And I was in communion with the Holy Spirit. I was talking to Him, and I was listening for His voice. And I just felt Him say, "Seek my heart." And that's truly what I did. And it was the most peaceful month. And just a few weeks later, after we had received prayer from everybody, the day after Thanksgiving, I had gotten a positive pregnancy test. And I didn't believe that it was real. But each day those tests got darker and darker. So after receiving that positive pregnancy test, we immediately went to Sue Lee, told her that we had gotten a positive test, and we needed prayer from her. And she prayed over us and laid hands on my belly and just prayed that this pregnancy would just be fulfilled by the Holy Spirit. And that's exactly what has been happening. And throughout this journey, listening to the Holy Spirit, learning how to surrender, I found my purpose again. My purpose is not in anything earthly. It's not about being a mom. It's not even about being a wife. And it's not about the job that I do. It's just being a child of God and listening to His voice and being a servant of Him and doing what He says to bring His kingdom glory.
So in the end, we didn't need the fertility treatments. We didn't need the things of this earth. What we needed was God, but God wanted a relationship with us above everything else. And in the end, we got pregnant naturally. Mm-hmm. We got connected with our church. We got connected with our prayer life. We got connected with each other. And what God was after was never the pregnancy. What God was after was our hearts. And I can't think of a more beautiful way that he could have led us to where we are.
Mhm.